The desert dawn broke in sizzling shafts of pale gold, the horizon a blurred smear of ochre and rose. Joe Martin squinted through the windshield of his beat-up Ford Ranger, the air shimmering in waves of heat already rising from the parched earth. He'd spent half his life out here, repairing broken ATVs, tractors, even luxury RVs with busted air conditioning units. His repair shop, a corrugated metal structure festooned with frayed tarpaulins, had seen more dust and sandstorms than a NASA test site, but this morning, something pulled him off his usual route. A sudden, inexplicable flicker on his low-band scanner, followed by the unmistakable glow of pulsing blue light flickering beyond the dunes. He parked, grabbed his tool belt, and trudged, through knee-high sand toward the source. His boots sank with each step, the fine grains drifting through the treads until they rubbed hot against his skin. At first, he thought it was someone's art installation, one of those glitch artists who came here to photograph abandoned mining equipment. But as he crested the dune, his jaw dropped. Half buried in sand, its sleek hull carved in sinuous curves of obsidian metal, lay a ship unlike any earthly craft. It stretched nearly 30 feet long, tapering to a razor-sharp prow. Along its length ran lines of glowing circuitry, like bioluminescent veins, pulsing in time with a low, resonant hum that vibrated through Joe's chest. From certain angles the patterns shifted, rippling like a living thing. The hatch, that smooth oval panel set flush with the hull, stood ajar, as if beckoning him inside. Joe swallowed hard, palm slick with sweat despite the coolness of early morning. He hefted his tool bag, heavy with wrenches and soldering irons, and approached the alien vessel. The hum grew louder, a gentle throb that resonated through the soles of his boots. He circled the ship, inspecting every seam and panel for damage. Fine cracks ran like spiderwebs across the surface. Here and there, gouges revealed an unfamiliar alloy beneath the matte black finish. A thin plume of vapor rose from a vent, dissipating into the still air. He knelt beside it, wiping grime from a panel that housed what looked like a power core. The faint blue glow seeped through the cracks. His Scandinavian-trained mind ticked through possibilities. Magnetic containment failure, coolant rupture, capacitor overload. Though the design was alien, the physics, he realized, were not wholly different. He laid his tools out and set to work. First came the stabilization phase. He rigged a makeshift support strut from a broken axle he'd carried as spare and inserted it beneath a sagging section of hull. Then he opened the panel fully, revealing a lattice of crystalline structures and metallic filaments, unlike any circuit board. They glowed softly, emitting a pleasant warmth. Joe traced his gloved finger along one filament. It felt smooth, almost organic. He found the primary fuse assembly, a ring of concentric rings inlaid with what looked like crushed gemstones. One segment was scorched black. He clicked open his portable multimeter. The readout flashed indecipherable glyphs, then settled into a stable but low voltage. The power flow was erratic. Just enough juice to keep the hum going, but nowhere near full capacity. He removed the damaged ring, gingerly pried it free with a custom prying tool, and set it aside. Then he searched his kit for anything approximating the material. Among his scattered bits he found a chunk of crystalline quartz, leftover from a geologist friend's visit, and thought, why not? He ground it against a rock to shape it, then lathered its edges with conductive epoxy he'd developed for fine trace electronics. As the epoxy set under his breath lamp, he fashioned a series of micropins from copper wire to bridge the quartz to the remaining gemstone rings. By the time the sun crested the horizon, the replacement fuse glowed a soft violet, tentative but alive. Next came the coolant loop. A thin ribbon of tubing had ruptured at a junction joint, spewing an unknown fluid. Joe identified the inlet and outlet ports and fashioned a bypass using a section of his own hair-thin brake-line tubing, sealing it with heavy-duty silicone he stocked for RV plumbing. It took 2 tries and a minor explosion of steaming fluid to get it right, but the coolant began circulating again, easing the residual heat in the core. As he tightened the last clamp, the vessel shivered, the hum deepened into a steady pulse. Joe's heart thundered in his chest. He snapped on a protective visor and pressed a diagnostics panel lit by phosphorescent symbols. They rearranged under his touch, like living letters responding to a silent language. A final wrench turn on a pressure valve sent a ripple through the hull plating. The vents closed, the vapor plumes ceased, and all lights brightened to an unwavering sapphire glow. He staggered back. For a moment, nothing moved but the heat haze. Then, almost imperceptibly, the hatch slid open with a pneumatic hiss. Inside, the cockpit glowed in ethereal hues, consoles alight with symbols he didn't recognize. A soft white mist curled at the edges of the entryway, as though the ship was exhaling. Joe swallowed. He'd repaired collisions of piston and rotor before, but this was beyond anything. He glanced at the sun-scorched sand, then back at the gaping hatch. His rational mind screamed for retreat. Get away. Call the authorities. Don't touch anything else. But the part of him that loved a challenge, the desert-born technician who reveled in unforgiving machinery, stepped forward. He planted his boots on the threshold and peered inside. The cockpit was narrow and long, rising to a domed ceiling, of translucent material that pulsed with star-like specks. A single chair floated in the center, straps dangling as if from a harness but devoid of seatbelt. Gravity within seemed muted. Surrounding it were arrays of glowing panels, each bearing curving lines of text that shifted under his gaze. His pulse settled to a measured beat. He clicked his tongue and murmured, "I don't know how you work, but I get the feeling you need. A friend." He reached out and touched a console. The lights rippled in response like ripples on a pond. Across the ship, somewhere deep inside, a soft thrum echoed back, a sound almost like a heartbeat. The moment stretched, shimmering in the morning light. Joe Martin, desert mechanic, had opened a door not only to a ship, but to the unknown. And, just as the hatch fully retracted and the ship's systems whispered in unison, he sensed that this was no accident of fate. Something far greater was at play, and by dusk, neither he nor the world would ever be the same. The hatch's pneumatic hiss faded, leaving an almost reverent silence inside the ship's cockpit. Joe Martin stood at the threshold, his boot heels clicking once against the smooth metallic floor. The air felt cooler here, charged with a subtle static that pricked the hairs on his arms. Console lights glowed in hues of aquamarine and lavender, their symbols undulating like living script. At the center of it all was a single floating chair, its harness straps drifting as if underwater. He inhaled sharply and stepped forward, every nerve alive. His fingers itched to probe more panels, but instinct gave way to caution. Clearing his throat, he called out, "Hello? Is anyone here?" For a heartbeat, nothing answered but the gentle hum of reactivated systems. Then, from the shadows behind, the pilot's seat, a slender form emerged. Joe's breath caught in his throat. The being was taller than any man he'd ever seen, easily 7 feet in height, its limbs impossibly long and delicate. Its skin was mottled jade green, shifting in tone like oil on water. The head was elongated, sweeping seamlessly into a slender neck, crowned by 2 large obsidian eyes that reflected his bewildered face. Joe froze. His first thought was that he'd triggered some kind of defense mechanism, robots imitating organic life. But as he watched, the figure's posture relaxed. It floated forward, knees bending in the air, toes not touching the floor. The console lights refracted through its translucent skin, casting prismatic patterns across the cockpit. The creature paused a few feet away, head tilted in what Joe guessed was curiosity. He realized his heart was hammering so loudly he could hear it. He swallowed, forcing his voice to remain steady. I'm Joe Martin. I fixed your ship." At that, the being's eyes widened just a fraction. A soft vibration thrummed through Joe's skull, not loud or alarming, but unmistakable. A gentle voice, genderless and melodic, resonated within his mind. "You fixed it. You healed the wound." Joe staggered, one hand coming up to his temple. Mind-to-mind communication. Nothing in textbooks had prepared him for this. He clenched his jaw and thought back, concentrating. "Who are you?" he projected. "I am Via Ren. scout of the Glarathi Collective. The thought voice brought with it a sensation of weightlessness, as if his consciousness swirled in zero gravity. I have wandered too close to the Voralak expanse. Their storm shattered my vessel. He nodded, words finally catching up to his racing thoughts. Right, meteor shower, I got you back online. He scratched the back of his neck, grinning sheepishly. Guess you don't get many desert crashes. A flicker of what Joe could only interpret as a smile passed over Viren's narrow lips. It drifted closer, its three-fingered hand extended, in greeting, an alien gesture echoing human courtesy. Joe hesitated, then put out his hand. His gloved fingertips brushed Viren's cool, smooth skin. A jolt of sensation pulsed into him. Images of starlit nebulae, of massive crystalline, starships of worlds he'd never imagined. He recoiled in surprise, nearly stumbling. Forgive my haste, Viren's voice whispered. I share only what is needed to create understanding. Joe caught his balance. You're welcome. Look, I've never done any of this before, but I'd like to know more. About you, your ship, what all these symbols mean. He gestured at the glowing panels. Viren bobbed its head. Communication by mind alone can overwhelm you. I will translate concepts into your speech. Its hand hovered over a console and tapped a sequence of symbols. Instantly, one screen blinked into English letters. System diagnostics complete. Another panel scrolled. Coolant pressure optimal. Joe's eyes widened as the alien interface recast itself into comprehensible data. Brilliant, he murmured. Thank you. Relief flooded him. He wasn't in total isolation. Viren guided him through the remaining systems. Power reserves at 45%, life support nominal but sustaining only one occupant, navigation data corrupted beyond recovery. Its telepathic translations were precise, efficient, lacking any flourish. Yet Joe sensed warmth behind them, a desire to connect. Over the next hour they worked side by side. Viren showed him the intricacies of the photonic reactor core, how crystalline conduits channeled energy from stellar arrays, how the microfusion cells auto-regulated their yield. Joe adapted, suggesting Earth-based modifications, a heat sink borrowed from a satellite design, a microcontroller chip scavenged from his truck's ECU. Viren watched, absorbing human ingenuity with quiet admiration. Between tasks, Joe dared more conversation. Where are you headed? The Glarathi homeworld lies within the Ophiuchus Rift, Viren explained. I was surveying trans-dimensional rifts when the storm struck. I carried data crucial to the collective's safety. Joe's chest tightened. Trans-dimensional. Rifts, he thought. Sounds dangerous. Extremely. A weight settled behind Viren's words. The Voralak disrupt rifts to harvest energy. Their incursions threaten all who traverse star lanes. He looked away, imagining hostile fleets tearing at the fabric of reality. I get it. So you need to deliver this data? Precisely. Viren's voice softened. And you have saved my life. I offer you this token of gratitude. The alien reached into a compartment beneath its robe-like garment and produced a small sphere of translucent crystal, about the size of a tennis ball. It glowed from within, swirling with violet light. Joe took it gingerly. The moment his skin touched the orb, the air around him pulsed. Visions flickered, the latticed architecture of Glarathi cities, their corridors of living crystal, fleets of ships weaving through wormholes, the serene, unblinking gaze of the collective's council. He felt the weight of Viren's trust, the burden of the data he now carried. When the vision released him, his hands shook. It's beautiful, he whispered. It is an attunement crystal. Viren's thought voice was steady. It will allow us to communicate more directly across distance. Keep it close. When you speak my name while touching it, I will sense your intent. Joe slipped the sphere into his jacket pocket. Thank you, Viren. And thank you, Joseph Martin. The alien's use of his full name resonated with warmth. I must depart soon. The residual damage to my navigation arrays prevents safe jump through space. I will attempt repairs at the nearby Glarathi enclave. Joe glanced toward the hatch. Can I help with that? Via-Ren hesitated, its first sign of uncertainty. Your talents are great, but this is beyond your training. I will manage. Then it added, but if you wish, come aboard when I return. A thread of excitement wove through Joe's chest. I'd like that. Without further ceremony, Via-Ren floated to the pilot's chair. The consoles around it glowed brighter, responding to its touch. The ship's engines thrummed to life, shutters on the fuselage glowing red as they rotated into position. Outside, the dawn sky shifted to brilliant blue. Joe stepped back, breathing in the air. Tools accomplished their work. Now the ship was ready to carry Via-Ren home. He watched in awe as vines of energy traced along the hull, outlining the warp drives, the starlight catching nacelles. The hum deepened, reverberating through his bones. Then, with a final pulse, the ship lifted an inch off the ground. A fleck of sand drifted from beneath it. Joe felt his heart in his throat as he realized what came next. Farewell. You'll do fine, he mouthed, voicelessly. He touched the side of his jacket, feeling the crystal's warmth. Via-Ren inclined its head in acknowledgement. Until we meet again, friend Joe. The telepathic farewell rang clear in his mind. A blinding flash of sapphire light snapped Joe's eyelids shut. When he opened them, the ship was gone. The desert stretched out before him, silent once more. His chest rose and fell with excitement and wonder, and a tremor of uncertainty. He reached into his pocket and patted the crystal. It was warm, pulsing faintly. Whatever lay ahead, whatever cosmic journey he'd stumbled into, he now carried a piece of it with him. And somewhere in the vastness of interstellar space, Via-Ren carried a memory of the desert mechanic who dared to fix the impossible. Joe Martin tucked his tool bag under one arm, stared toward the horizon, and whispered to the empty winds, "All right, Via-Ren. I'll be ready when you come back." Joe Martin awoke to a dull vibration coursing through the floorboards of his small desert home. His head pounded from a night of fevered dreams, fractured images of starships tearing at reality, a green-skinned face reflected in obsidian glass. He rubbed his eyes and sat up, trading the safety of blankets for the shock of hot morning air. Through the window, he blinked at a sight that stole his breath. 3 colossal cruisers, black as fresh asphalt, hovered in formation just beyond his fence line. Their underbellies bristled with racks of sensors and weapon pods, and triangular panels gleamed with unreadable sigils. His heart thundered. What in the world? He tumbled from bed and fumbled for his boots, bare feet scuffing the dusty floor. Outside, the cruisers' silhouettes cast long, ominous shadows across the cracked earth. Each ship was nearly twice the size of Via-Ren's Scout, once sleek and elegant, and now these leviathans hung above his property like vultures. Before he could reach his tool bag, 3 ribbed ramps descended simultaneously, their edges emitting a faint hum. From each ramp strode 6 figures in full-body armor of the same matte black as the cruisers, their helmets featureless, except for thin, horizontal visors that glowed crimson. Joe froze, tools slipping from his grasp. The lead figure raised a hand, motioning him forward with a single gloved finger. Joseph Martin, a synchronized metallic voice intoned from all 3. You are under provisional containment for unauthorized repair and activation of extraterrestrial technology. Joe's jaw dropped. Containment? I fixed a ship. I didn't steal anything. His voice cracked with panic. He took a hesitant step forward. I swear I was trying to help. Compliance is non-optional. The armored figure's tone brooked no argument. 2 guards flanked Joe's arms and guided him up the central ramp. His boots clicked on polished metal as the hatch sealed behind him with a resonant thud. Inside, the cruiser was cavernous, an expanse of shadowed corridors lit by faint violet strips recessed into the walls. The air tasted cool and sterile. Joe's captors steered him down narrow passageways until they reached a reinforced chamber. Heavy doors sealed him in. The sound of distant engines thrummed as if the ship itself were a living heartbeat. Alone, Joe turned in a slow circle. The floor gleamed obsidian, reflecting the pulsing lights overhead. On one wall, a transparent panel revealed a view of his property receding beneath the cruisers. His home, his shop, the dunes beyond, all shrinking as the vessel rose. A soft beep announced his entrance. A tall figure in slightly more ornate armor stepped through a side door. Removing its helmet, the being revealed a human woman's face, stern but not unkind. Silver threads glinted in her dark hair, and her eyes held a mixture of sympathy and duty. "Mr. Martin," she said, voice calm. "I am Captain Elena Voss, of the United Earth Glirathi Liaison Command. You have been brought aboard because your actions saved a critical scout vessel belonging to the Glirathi Collective." Joe swallowed hard. I did what any mechanic would do. That ship would have died out there." Captain Voss nodded. "Your ingenuity prevented a diplomatic crisis. That vessel carried vital reconnaissance data on the Voralak insurgency. Without it, both Earth and the Collective face increased risk." She paced, folding her arms. "However, under interstellar mandate, the repair of alien craft is strictly regulated. You are to accompany us for debriefing and provisional assessment." He ran a hand through his hair. "Debriefing? Assessment? Is that like prison?" She gave a small, regretful smile. "Think of it as custody, not punishment. You will have amenities. You may rest. But until we verify the extent of your involvement and intentions, you'll remain aboard." 2 armored guards returned, their gauntleted, hands gently but firmly guiding him back into the corridor. Joe's mind raced. He remembered the crystal Viren had given him, tucked safely in his jacket pocket. It pulsed faintly against his side. Perhaps that attunement crystal could aid him, help him contact Viren for guidance. As they led him past rows of suspended panels and turreted hatches, he noticed small displays flickering with images of alien landscapes. Star charts traced in glowing filaments. Everywhere he looked, technology far beyond Earth's clusters of satellites and orbital platforms surrounded him. He felt both awed and overwhelmed. Finally, they reached a more welcoming chamber furnished with a low table, a reclining seat, and a wall panel streaming data in multiple languages. A steaming mug materialized on the table, a synthetic beverage engineered to mimic Earth's coffee. Joe took it gratefully, the warmth and caffeine settling his nerves. Captain Voss regarded him thoughtfully. "You will be questioned shortly. I advise you to cooperate fully. Our goal is alliance, not interrogation." He nodded, swirling the dark liquid. "I understand. He sighed, glancing toward the viewport, where distant dunes drifted like snowflakes. "I just want to know what's next, for me and for Viren." Her eyes softened. "Rest now, Mr. Martin. Soon we will explain the wider conflict and how you fit into our command structure." She turned to leave, then paused. "If you hold that attunement crystal close, it may facilitate communications. Use it wisely." With that, she departed. The guards remained stationed by the door, impassive as statues. Joe set the mug aside and retrieved the crystal. He cradled it in his palm. Its inner glow pulsed in rhythm with his heartbeat. He pressed his thumb against its surface and closed his eyes. "Viren," he thought, letting the mental connection bloom. "It's Joe. I'm not where I expected to be." For a moment there was nothing but silence, and then, like a soft breeze in his mind, came Viren's voice. "Joseph Martin, you are safe. We will reclaim this vessel and chart a course to bring you home. Remain calm." Relief washed over him. He opened his eyes to find the crystal's light steady and bright. Whatever else the liaison command had planned, he was not alone, and when the time came, he would stand at the helm of this new alliance between Earth and the stars. The chamber door slid open with a sonorous sigh, revealing a vast hangar bay whose ceiling arched into shadow beyond the reach of violet lights. A gargantuan flagship loomed before Joe Martin, its hull a tapestry of living crystal and black, alloy, almost twice the length of the black cruisers that had escorted him here. Docked alongside were scout fighters and supply haulers, all bearing the tri-pronged emblem of the Glarathi Collective. The air thrummed with latent power. Captain, Elena Voss fell into step beside him, her pace measured. "This is the HFY, flagship of the Glarathi Defense Armada," she said. Her warp drive was crippled in the same storm that downed Viren's scout. Without her, the Collective cannot mount an effective defense against the Vorlak. She looked to Joe. "That's where you come in." Joe swallowed. He'd never left Earth's atmosphere before today. Now he stood in the heart of an alien armada, about to tackle a drive system engineered by a civilization older than human history. His palms itched with equal parts fear and exhilaration. I'll do my best," he managed. Viren appeared, at the lip of the bay, emerging from the shadows like a living sculpture. Its obsidian eyes held gratitude and urgency. "Joseph Martin," it transmitted gently into his mind, "your skill is required. The guide crystals for the warp manifold were damaged. I have prepared diagnostic schematics. Follow me." The Glarathi officer led him along a suspended catwalk, past decks of silent sentries and starlight windows framing distant nebulae. Beneath them, the flagship's rear hull curved into the cavernous engine chamber, where dormant warp coils spiraled, like slumbering serpents. Viren tapped a control pad embedded in Joe's wrist, an attunement implant bonded to the crystal, and the coils glowed faintly, revealing stress fractures and misaligned conduits. Joe knelt beside the nearest coil, helmeted headlamp carving, arcs of light across the crystalline surface. He studied the fractures, hairline fissures that jutted into the energy pathways, bleeding precious warp particles. He retrieved his toolkit, now a hybrid of human and Glarathi instruments, and began the delicate work of fusion sealing. Under Viren's telepathic guidance, he injected crystalline nano-epoxy into each crack, then activated a localized photonic resonator to harden the bonds. The surrounding coils thrummed in response, their glow shifting from dull violet to vibrant sapphire. Meanwhile, Captain Voss conferred with Viren at a data station. Joe caught snatches of their conversation. For ALAC fleet converging on Ophiuchus Rift, need full drive functionality within standard Earth shift. Allied forces must coordinate jump window. Time pressed in. Joe moved from coil to coil, sweat beading on his brow beneath the helmet. At each junction he recalibrated pressure regulators, aligned energy lenses, and swapped out shattered focus crystals with replacements Viren had synthesized. The ship's ambient hum rose in pitch, a cosmic harmony building toward crescendo. At last, only the central manifold remained. This was the heart of the warp drive, an immense translucent spindle whose core shimmered like liquid starlight. He climbed onto a raised platform, tools shaking in his hands. With careful precision, he replaced the manifold's guide crystals, each one shimmering with the violet glow of Glarathi Starforge. As he snapped the final crystal into place, the spindle flickered, then roared to life, sending tendrils of energy spiraling outward. Alarms chimed softly as monitoring consoles blinked green. Viren's voice echoed in Joe's mind, triumphant. Drive integrity at 98%, attempting primary diagnostic thrust. Captain Voss's tone crackled over the intercom. All hands brace for test. The massive engines pulsed, and the hangar lights dimmed for a heartbeat. Joe staggered as a resonant vibration coursed through the deck. Then, with a blinding flash of sapphire radiance, the HFY shuddered and lunged forward. Space, itself rippling around it as the ship executed a short-range warp jump to a point just beyond the fleet staging lines above the rift. Cheers erupted from unseen Glarathi crews. Joe grinned beneath his visor, adrenaline surging. Captain Voss approached, her armor gleaming in the aftermath glow. She saluted him. "Remarkable work, Mr. Martin. You have not only repaired a vessel, you have rekindled hope for billions." Viren floated to his side, eyes alight. "This success will echo through our collective. You have honored our bond, Joseph Martin." Joe touched the attunement implant on his wrist. "And you have shown me wonders beyond imagination. What happens now?" Captain Voss exchanged a look with Viren. "Now," she said, "you will stand with us as an officer of the Earth-Glarathi Alliance. Your knowledge bridges our worlds. Together, we will face the Voralak threat and ensure that no ship, no matter how strange, ever suffers alone in the void." Joe exhaled, his desert-born heart swelling with purpose. As the flagship's engines thrummed, ready to carry him into the uncharted expanse of star lanes and war-torn realms, he realized that the stranger he had once helped was now his comrade, and that together, they would write a new chapter in the annals of two civilizations united against the darkness beyond the stars.